Good evening, everyone. It's Monday evening, March 14th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and down here in sunny Florida. I hope everyone enjoyed the guest blog post last week by Dean Burgess. I've always mentioned that I'm very open to have guest blog posts from other professionals, other authors, other writers. If you do want to have a guest blog post posted here, my email address is at the bottom of the screen. Just shoot it to me. And, I always review it because I want to make sure all articles or posts are tasteful. And there's not a lot of major guidelines that need to be followed. They need to be around 1,500 to 2,000 words. But they need to be appropriate. The topic is a topic of your choice, so I'm always open to that. And I want to thank Dean for submitting his article, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. So the topic of tonight's blog post, what are the 7 deadly sins of life? We've all heard about the 7 deadlies. Matter of fact, it's been mentioned in movies. In the movie Urban Cowboy, when Bud's uncle said, pride is one of those 7 deadlies, The thing about the 7 deadlies, however, is that, everybody has a different opinion. It all depends on who you talk to. So tonight's blog is a little bit more about my opinion, rather than specific data or facts. But I think if you view this through its entirety, you'll understand why I've chosen these particular seven topics to briefly discuss. This is not a religious blog. We're not talking about breaking the 10 commandments here or anything like that. This is strictly a self-help blog about what we all deal with. And I do mean we when I say we, in everyday life. And what are those 7 deadlies in my opinion? And just so you know, my opinion comes from just under between 35 and 45 years in pre-hospital medicine. So let's assume that I've interacted with a lot of people, and I have over 76,000 patients I've taken care of in my career. So you learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about life, and the things you see on the job as a firefighter or a paramedic also teach you a great deal about life, besides the things you learn in school from the courses that you take and clinical education that you have to have, and so on and so forth. So let me just list them, and then we're going to talk about them briefly. And this is not necessarily in the order of importance. I'm going to tell you the one that I think is the most important as we move through this. The first, I think, is not learning from our previous mistakes. The second, I would say, is human pride. The third, I would say, jealousy or envy. Now, you might think that may total 8, but jealousy or envy actually are 1, because people tend to confuse the two and mix the two together. The next, I would say, is speaking out of anger. The 5th one would be not listening. The 6th one would be not totally forgiving. And the last one, which I happen to think is the most important, is not taking care of yourself. So let's just briefly discuss each one of those. And just so you know, comments and questions are always welcome, so please feel free to leave a comment. I do read them all. And if you have any questions, again, my email address is on the bottom of the screen. You can email me direct, or if you go to my website, and that website address is on the bottom of the screen, you could also use our contact form and contact me that way, whichever works for you. So not learning from our previous mistakes. What does that mean? That means we make a mistake and basically we think we learned something by it, but the reality is we didn't, because if that situation should come into play into the future, we make the same mistake over and over again. And that happens quite often in relationships. And a lot of these things are relationship related as well as life related. But, you know, how many times have you gone out as a teenager or a young adult, or an adult at any age for that matter, had a few too many cocktails and you lay in bed at night while the room is spinning and you're trying not to have everything in your stomach wind up on the outside rather than stay on the inside, and you say, God, if you let me live through this, I'll never do this again. And what do? We do it again. Now, that's just one particular type of analogy, but that happens oftentimes, like I said, especially in relationships, or even at work, or even with our family members. You know, we make a mistake. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake. My God, we're all humans, and we're all going to make mistakes. And one statistic that is true that I will quote, and that is, out of 10 things we do in our life, or 10 decisions we make in our life, one of them will be wrong. So 1 out of every 10 decisions we make are going to be wrong. And that's okay. Obviously, depending on what the decision is, I should say. Excuse my little stutter there. But the problem becomes when we continuously make the same mistake twice, 3 times, 4 times, or every time we deal with that particular scenario. That is telling us that we didn't learn anything from the previous encounter. Now, the whole idea about life is the things that you encounter, you're supposed to learn something from. And when you learn something from these encounters, if it was a good experience, you'll take that into the future, and that'll give you a positive outcome every single time that you get involved in that type of situation. However, if you didn't learn anything from that, and that particular outcome was negative, and you continue to make that same mistake, then every time you do, the outcome is going to be negative. So therefore, the prospects in your future regarding those events will always be negative. And that could lead to other underlying problems: clinical depression, relationship issues, trust issues. So oftentimes, one thing greatly affects the other. Now, I'm not going to say this is never going to happen. The other saying is, mess with me once, shame on you. Mess with me twice, shame on me. And that's very, very true. So if you allow, by the mistakes that you make, for the same events or turn of events to take place every single time that happens, it's nobody's fault but your own. Problem is, the human condition kind of dictates that we don't usually blame ourselves when something goes wrong. We find a reason or an excuse to blame other people. And most times, and in most cases, it's our own fault. And that's the bottom line, whether we choose to accept it or not. So my take-home message for point number 1 is, if you make a mistake, analyze it. Even if you don't really like to analyze it because you don't want to face it, analyze it. Learn the mistake you made so you don't make the second mistake, the same mistake again. Number 2, pride. Oh yeah, pride is a big one. Like I quoted a line from Urban Cowboy, pride is a difficult thing to swallow. It really hurts going down. And what happens with pride is, to give you a good analogy for it, is, let's say 2 people get into an argument, and each person themselves knows that they're wrong, but they won't admit it to each other or to one another because of the pride. You don't want to give the other person the upper hand, because, as a rule of thumb, people tend to throw things back in your face when it happens again, and none of us want to deal with that. So our pride oftentimes will cause us to lose things. I know when I was doing my clinical time in a marriage counselor's office, and obviously it was just clinical observation, I couldn't get involved, but many, many times I've seen marriages break up or relationships break up because one person will just not admit they were wrong. And it's happened so many times, time after time after time and after time, that the other person gets tired of it. Try and keep something in the back of your mind. If you do anything negative towards anybody or any group of people and you continuously do it, after a while, people are going to get tired of it and they're not going to take it. They're not going to stand for it. And you're either going to be ejected from your group of friends. People aren't going to socialize with you. They're not going to want to be around you. You're not going to be invited to parties that you used to be. And these things all affect your mental health. Actually, every one of these 7 deadlies affects your mental health over time. Number 3, jealousy, envy. Oh, let me get back to number 2 for one more minute. So my bottom line about pride is, if you're wrong, you know what? Suck it up, buttercup. Stand up and say, hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And be done with it. All right? So on to number 3, jealousy or envy. Everybody strives for more. We work harder. We work more hours. We want to make more money because of what? Because we want more, either for ourselves, our family, our children. But where that becomes unhealthy is when we become jealous of other people because they have that perfect partner in life and maybe you don't feel you do, or they have that bigger home or that nicer car or more money in the bank. And that jealousy intertwined with envy, you begin to envy them because you feel they have things or a thing that you don't have. But the way to look at that and the way to think about it to keep that type of destructive method of thinking away is there's always going to be people that have more than you or better things than you have, but there's also going to be people that have far less better things or far less things than you have that aren't as fortunate as you. So how do you solve that? You have to be content with yourself and you have to be content with what you have. And that doesn't mean that contentment stops you from striving to have more, because you should always want to strive to have more. You should always want to strive to be better. You just want that to be a positive experience, not a negative experience, and you don't want it to have an adverse reaction towards your life. So jealousy and envy cause tons of problems. They break up friendships. They cause arguments between friends and families, brothers and sisters. It's just not good. Bottom line, just not good. Best way to avoid it, be happy with what you have. Speaking out of anger, another pet phrase that everybody uses. Be careful what you say, because once you say it, you can't take it back. Now, we've all said things to our significant other or friends or our family members out of anger. And then we turn around and say, you know what? I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I was angry. That ties into number 6, meaning not forgiving. They're kind of synergetic, okay? You said it. You tried to take it back, but people don't forget it. They'll always remember that you said it. And maybe won't be as forgiving as you would like them to be. And that's why people throw things back up to you years later. You remember when you said this, you remember when you said that, and you said, whoa, I told you I said it out of anger. I didn't mean it. People don't forget it. So never speak out of anger. And we all get angry. We all have arguments with somebody, work, family, friends, our partner in life. When you get angry, walk away. And you just say, listen, we'll talk about it when I calm down. Because remember something, in any argument, it takes 2 people. 1, 2. 2 people. Unless somebody wants to sit there or stand there and argue with themselves. Diffuse the situation, walk away, and think about what you're going to say before you say it. And if you're saying something out of anger, simply don't say it. Walk away. Number 5 I mentioned is not listening. As human beings, we have this inherent trait and problem of not listening. We want to have our viewpoint stated. We want to do the talking. We don't want to listen. Well, when you don't listen when someone else is talking or trying to express their point, and all you're focused on in your brain while they're talking to you is what you want to say and how you're going to say it to get your point across, then you're blatantly a fool. All right? Because you're going to be causing problems that you didn't have just because you're going to speak before you listened. Listen to what people have to say. Because remember, to them, their perception is what they have to say is just as important to them as what you think you have to say is important to you. And when you say it, you want people to listen, don't you? Let's be realistic. So the bottom line is people want you to listen. So listen. You know, worst case scenario with listening is you just might find out that the other person's got a point. They might be right in what they're saying. And guess what? You might be the one that's wrong. And that reverts back to number 2, pride. If you're the one that's wrong and you could see that you're wrong, someone has shown you that you're wrong, and you know in your heart and your mind you are wrong, swallow that pride and just own it and be done with it. All right? It'll make people respect you more. It'll build your character. It'll make you a better person. Not forgiving. Oh, that's a big one. And I've seen that so many times in my clinical experiences. One partner has an extra marital affair, and now they're going to counseling because that one person realizes they were wrong and they want to make the marriage work. It's not working, so they go to counseling, blah, 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 so on and so forth. What happens is someone says, I forgive you, but deep down inside, they really don't. And when you don't truly forgive someone for anything they do, I don't care whether it's being late, to some people, being late for dinner or being late to go out on a date is very important to them, okay? And it could be the most minutest thing. It could be the smallest little detail that to you means nothing or to the other person means nothing. But to one of the two of you, it's important. All right? And people can forgive somebody just so many times. You can't keep stepping on my foot while we're dancing and I forgive you for it until after 20 or 30 or 40 dances, you're still stepping on my feet. After a while, I'm going to get mad. I'm not going to forgive you for it because now it's just pure stupidity. Okay? And that's what happens in life. Happens all the time in life, 7 days a week. And if you want to be honest with yourself, there's not one darn thing that I'm mentioning here that you haven't experienced or are experiencing now. But with all of these things, you have the ability to change. You have the ability to make it so they don't have quite the devastating effect on you. The last thing, which in my opinion is the most important, you don't take care of yourself. Remember what I'm about to tell you because it's another phrase that I'm sure you have all heard, but it's a very true one. You can't be good for someone else or you can't help someone else until you're good to yourself and you've helped yourself. It's that simple. If not, you're going to try and help the other person. You're going to try to be good to them, but you're not going to because a lot of those other 7 deadlies, your pride, you're not listening, you're not forgiving, are going to enter into this. All right? And it's going to affect your judgment. So you have to be good to you. We use the term look in the mirror but that's a figure of speech. I'm not telling you to stand there and look at the mirror, but look at yourself. Look inside yourself. And you know what your faults are. You know what your weaknesses are. And you know what your strong points are. The hardest thing to do is address those difficult things. Things that you know where you need to change. I'll start tomorrow. I'll think about it tomorrow. You have no drive. You have no motivation. You might be depressed for a number of any other reasons. But you got to take care of you. That's the most important thing, because you can't take care of your partner, your family, your friends, your children, or anyone unless you've taken care of yourself. And I don't mean that, and don't misunderstand me to mean that you have to be selfish and think only of you. And no, Christmas is coming and I can't afford Christmas gifts for my friends, for my children, but I really want this, so I'm going to buy this for me and not get my children or anything. No. That's not what I mean when I say take care of yourself. Take care of yourself physically, take care of yourself emotionally, and take care of yourself mentally. That's what I mean when I say take care of you, take care of yourself. You have to be a stable individual in order for you to pass that stability and impress that stability onto others. And you can't do that if you haven't taken care of yourself. That's why that's the most important of the 7 deadlies. And as I said in the beginning of this, you might talk to a variety of different people and their opinion of the 7 deadlies might be different. All right. This is my opinion. I think these are the biggest problems that we deal with in our life on a daily basis, and we do it without even realizing we're doing it. You're in a bad mood, your significant other or partner says something to you and you snap back in anger. You come home from work in a bad mood because the boss pissed you off, whatever the case may be, and you snap at the person you're with, your friend, a family member, your children. Okay? That gets back to number 4, speaking out of anger. You can't do that. You have to find a balance. Everything in life is about balance. Balance with work, balance at home, balance with play, balance with your children, balance within yourself. Knowing your capabilities, knowing what you can handle, knowing what you can't handle, knowing when you could offer help, and knowing when not only you need help, but you're able to ask for help. And nobody knows you better than you. All you have to be able to do is face it. So that's my self-help topic for tonight. In my opinion of the 7 deadlies, because you're not alone, and don't ever think you're alone. We've all experienced them. We will continue to experience them because it's an ongoing process, is what it is. It's a learning process. It's a behavioral change sometimes. All right? And funny as it may seem, once you institute change, then once you're comfortable with that change, change will be your new normal, and you won't have to think about these things to make sure you're not doing them, because you simply won't do them. So I hope you enjoyed our little discussion tonight, and please, comments are welcome. And anybody who has a request for a topic, by all means, please send it to me. I'll be more than happy to discuss it. This particular topic tonight was one of my own. And moving forward, I'll get back to the requests that I receive. And if you want me to give you credit for a topic that you request, just let me know, and I'd be more than happy to. If you want to remain anonymous, that's also fine too. But with that, I wish you all a good evening. Be happy, stay safe, and be well. Thank you.